Hello, hello, welcome everybody. How's our energy doing? I know it's week 2 of COP. Negotiations are negotiating and life is lifing, but are we thriving? Can we get a thumbs up if everyone's doing okay? We're doing okay-ish? So-so? Oh, okay, I see some so-sos over here. Well, I hope that after this session, our energy is a little bit higher and we're having a little bit more fun as we do everything serious and difficult that we're doing here at COP. My name is Riddhi. I work for the capacity building team of the UN Climate Change Secretariat. It's a pleasure to have you all over here for this session where we're empowering you for synergistic Rio Conventions actions. What I'm going to do is quickly introduce the Youth for Capacity program that is hosting this session. So Youth for Capacity was launched 2 years ago as we at the UNFCCC and together with the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security of Italy recognized that it's not just about building young people's capacities. We already come with a lot of capacities. It's about mobilizing those capacities as well. And that's exactly what we're going to do at this session. You can check out the QR code for all our activities, what we do throughout the year at COPs, at SBs, at regional climate weeks, and different spaces, online, offline, everything is on there. But none of this would have been possible without our donors. So I would like to pass it over to Roberta Iana, who's representing the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security of Italy, to just provide us with some remarks and to kick off the session. Roberta, over to you.
Thank you, Riddhi. Thank you very much for being here, everyone, first of all. And I'm Roberta Ianna from the Italian Ministry of Environment and Energy Security, representing here my Director General, who is unfortunately busy with the update to our Minister who just arrived for the negotiations. So apologies from him, but we are really happy to see many familiar faces here and to keep having this community growing of young people engaged in climate change negotiation in the UNFCCC space. And we are particularly happy that the Secretariat team created this capacity building space, which is continuing from COP to COP, but also at the subsidiary body session in Bonn. We have here also colleagues from the UNDP, Roxani and Buai, who are leading the Youth for Climate initiative. The program is called the Youth for Capacity program, because really we would like to have different initiatives work together, and this is the capacity building program to empower young people to be able to join either international processes or develop capacities to design impactful and innovative projects to be funded by the Youth for Climate initiative. So once again, thank you very much for your passion for being here. I'm giving back immediately the floor to Riddhi because I have to run. Unfortunately, I cannot stay here because there is an ACE and transparency event in the plenary that I need to join. But again, thank you and wish you a fruitful session.
Thanks so much, Roberta. Yeah, huge round of applause for Italy for investing in young people's capacities, solutions, all of that. With that, I want to do a little bit of crowd work now. Who's at COP for the first time ever? Okay, so we see a couple of them. For the second time? For the third time? Fourth? Oh, we have some number 4s as well. Look at me as well. Fifth? Haley, let's go. How many COPs have you been to? Only 5. Okay, do we have anyone above 5? More than 5 COPs. There we go. That's my boss right there. Perfect. While this is the UNFCCC COP, who went to the biodiversity COP that happened in Cali? Okay, we see a couple of... Who's going to the CCD COP? There we go. So we're going to hear a lot about COPs, the different conventions, their synergies, what Rio Conventions are. And without any further ado, I actually want to just pass it over to Kathy and Marie Claire. So let's just introduce them. Kathy is the Senior Climate and Energy Policy Manager at BirdLife International, and Marie Claire Graff is the co-founder of Youth Negotiators Academy. They're going to walk us through what the Rio Conventions are and what is the unique role of young people in the synergistic implementation of the Rio Conventions actions. So over to you guys.
Great, I'm happy to stand. So this is Mary Claire Graff, and I'm Kathy, for anyone curious. Great, next slide, please.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing. And a bit about ourselves. We've been in the process for some years, and for me, always focused on civil society advocacy in the multilateral policy processes, whether it's this convention or building synergies between this process and other UN agencies. And now I work at BirdLife International, leading our delegation here, about 20 folks across the world. And I'll pass it on to MC.
Yeah, and I have been in the process, actually this is my 8th COP. It feels a little bit like a shame, especially because progress is so slow. But yeah, I think about me, I have been engaging the same process, but from very different roles, which I think gives an interesting perspective, especially when we are exploring how young people can actually like shift the system and how can we build these bridges and contribute to the capacity building. My first 2 COPs, I came as a climate activist with an NGO from Switzerland. Then I became a Swiss negotiator, the youngest negotiator, in fact. Then I became focal point for Youngo, and we are actually just celebrating today the 15th anniversary of Youngo. That's why I was a little bit late, because I just came from the Youngo birthday celebration and the cake, and contributing to the constituency engagement. Yes, absolutely, should deserve some clapping. And then I co-founded the Academy, which you already mentioned, which brings young people into the process. But we're going to talk about this later, but that's just for introduction. Over to you.
Great. So we'll try to use the next very few minutes to quickly run through some interesting things about the Rio Conventions. So who among the audience have heard of the Rio Conventions? Before today, because knowing that really already before today. Okay, great. Next slide. Great. So many of you have seen this picture full of many old white men, some may say, back in 1992 in Rio. And this is a reminder, I think, for both of us and for many of you that this process has come a long way in terms of progress as well, but also diversity. And it is important that all of us and many of you as young people continue to drive change and make this space more inclusive and equitable. So, many of you have known the 3 conventions from RIDI or from other sources, and you have seen that there are 3 COPs happening this year in Cali for the CBD COP16 a few weeks ago, and now we're, of course, in Baku for the climate one, and in about a week and a half, 2 weeks' time, there's a desertification COP in Riyadh. And a little bit about the Convention on Biological Diversity. You would have heard that this kind of parallel to the Paris Agreement, they have the Global Biodiversity Framework, which was adopted 2-ish years ago. And to not make things complicated, we've circled the lower left bit. And that's a way of showing that how, yes, indeed, it's all about biodiversity, but at the same time, biodiversity and climate, of course, are both intertwined crises, but also needs intertwined solutions. And you can see that various targets and goals of this global biodiversity framework are hugely relevant to climate. And in fact, Target 8 is all about climate change. And personally, I was on the expert group on financial reporting, designing the indicators on finance for this global biodiversity framework. And even in that group, it doesn't seem very climate-y. We did talk a lot about climate. And of course, I'm sure you get this slide after our presentation, so you can look into the details of how not only these 2 processes, the GBF and UNFCCC, are intertwined, but also they, of course, are cross-cutting across SDGs. And then moving on to UNCCD on desertification, you can see that there are also elements relevant to the land degradation neutrality targets that is also cross-cutting across SDGs, including for climate as well. And going back to our convention, given that we are here in Baku for UNFCCC COP, there are 5 opportunities that we would like to highlight for those of you, whether it's in your work or in your advocacy with governments or businesses. And one is, of course, nationally determined contributions, because this is the big moment where many countries hopefully they've already submitted their updated MB-SAPs on biodiversity, but their nationally determined contributions on climate is supposed to theoretically due next February. So many of them are currently already working on how to design their updated NDCs. And as part of that, the opportunities would be, one is have sub-targets on nature and related fields, but also at the same time, it's just simply silly if they design their NDCs and national adaptation plans, long-term strategy, NBSAP on biodiversity and LDNs on land degradation separately, right? It requires more resources, it requires financial resources, capacity, and creates silos. So the hope from us and many organizations in this space is that they will continue to join forces and design them synergistically and implement them synergistically. And then, of course, my personal favorite, Rio Conventions Synergies. Many organizations, including in my professional capacity, are calling for a joint work program across the 3 conventions to make sure that besides really lovely conversations like the ocean dialogue happening in this process, there will be concrete process in place to make sure we make progress and get the work done. And then this is, of course, known as the Finance COP. In the new collective quantified goal, there are also opportunities, whether it's creating a sub-goal on nature or highlighting the important synergies between this new collective quantified goal and the targets and goals of the global biodiversity framework, namely Goal D targets 18 and 19. And just also want to highlight that this is nothing new, and people have been trying to make progress for many years, and we have made success, whether it's the leaders' declaration on deforestation at COP26 or and COP27, the recognition of nature-based solutions. And of course, last year, there's both the global stocktake outcome. In the decision text, there are various mentions of nature. And I was surprised when after Dubai, when I sat down and did a full mapping of all the nature-related mentions, there were multiple slides just to copy the text itself in both the global stocktake and the global goal on adaptation. And of course, Coder's not in the room, but he promised to be. But this incredible person from the COP28 team has led the COP28 joint statement on climate, nature, and people, which gathered a lot of signatories from governments, but also momentum from NGOs. Last but not the least, COP30 is, of course, a big moment ahead. So would really encourage all of you in the room. Together, we can keep nature at the heart of climate action, and also to remind people the importance and the opportunities that nature brings to this convention process. And I pass it on to the most incredible Mary Claire.
I have one. Good. Perfect. Ashley, yes, thank you so much, Kathy, for running us quickly through it. Okay. Let me. So, oh, sorry, I didn't turn it on. My bad. Yeah, for running us through. Well, incredible crowd of many young people here, and I think the second part of the question: how have we and how are we uniquely positioned to drive these synergies? Because again, it started from actually one conference. It's split. And many young people have the desire to bring it more closer together. And actually, many of us have been working, at least across 2 conventions, to bring it closer together. Actually, today I met the back then young person. Her name is also Mary Claire Cordonier-Seger, who actually has been speaking at the Rio Earth Summit on the inclusion of young people. Well, it took quite a while until young people were meaningfully engaged in the process, but also what we have seen, especially in the last 5 years, that there's an incredible increase of participation of young people. And I think what is the most important here, through multiple different avenues. Young people are not just engaging in one or the other way, but actually really have a diverse way of how we're engaging. And I think this is incredibly important when we talk about synergies, because we're not going to have synergies by having one way of how we're interacting with the system. The first 2 youth constituencies, Yango and also Gibbon, they will talk a little bit later. And then our newest sister in the round, the UNFCCC Youth Caucus, and really like how we have been able to also like strengthen the synergies between the different constituencies. And also just to mention, there are actually some other conventions out there. We also have been engaging when I was focal point with the wetland, the Ramsar Wetland Convention, and so on. So let's not forget our CITES. Like there are some others out there who happen to be a little bit smaller, nevertheless are incredibly important as well. But I think also what is really important that also through the other constituencies, for example, young people have been able to engage. Young farmers, young feminists. There was this year the Youth Indigenous Forum, right? And I think it's incredibly important that we as young people also, again, like support each other across different avenues. As mentioned, I was a young negotiator, and it's incredible to see how many young people we actually have who are literally sitting at the decision-making tables this year. Alone from our side, we trained over 300 negotiators. 150 of them are right now here at this COP who are negotiating. We will bring around 50 of them to the CCD COP. So it's incredibly important to also see how we can bridge that we as young people are not just seen as the ones outside the process, but actually how can we bridge into the process? How can we bring these voices who are normally kind of excluded or marginalized to the tables? How can we take the seats actually at the table? And I think that's already like going into the presence and future of where we want to go. And I know that afterwards we also have like roundtable discussions where we can exactly discuss this. How should young people be engaged? And I think it's incredibly important when we talk about synergies that we actually create a vision for us on how we want to engage. Because only if we know how we want to engage in the process, we can actually drive it. And to me, it was when I was a negotiator, I was the only one in the room, and I was told, under no circumstance mention your age when you're going into the rooms. When I was a negotiator, this already showed that's not how I want to show up. And I think it's so important and so beautiful to see that today we have so many young people who are not only young negotiators, but actually heads of delegations, ministers who are 28, vice chairs, Substan SBI vice chairs who happen to be also very young, kind of having this role model in the system. And I think that's how we are very, very concretely bridging the different conventions, how we're bridging the different tracks, and how we actually create real synergies. Maybe just to wrap up here, I think also that the importance of, or the unique importance of young people in the system is also because when we have an intergenerational leadership in these negotiations, automatically the long-term and the accountability is coming in, because if we have the young people in the rooms who are contributing to these kind of like interconnected policies, we no longer have to talk about synergies in the side event rooms as it's something like very special, but actually we live it. And I think the moment when we actually live the synergies, I think then we basically achieved what was once meant to be at the very beginning or the origin of these conventions. There's obviously a lot more on like how we can run these conferences better, that there's more synergies and so on. But I think that's afterwards for the roundtable discussions. And with this, we can go to the last slide. Say thank you. And also let's bring some nature into the room. So Kathy and I did this by bringing some birds and pandas into the room. So let's not forget what we're actually standing for, what we're fighting for. We are no different from the nature around us, despite it's obviously looks at it when we haven't seen sunlight for a long time, haven't kind of had fresh air. But let's always remind ourselves that that's the reason why we're actually here.
They deserve a huge round of applause. That was a fantastic job of setting the context. So one more round of applause for Kathy and Marie-Claire. Perfect. So we're at the UNFCCC COP, and I know both of them also spoke about how young people engage better with the process. One of the things that we've been doing with the capacity building team within our work at the UNFCCC is the Rio Conventions Joint Capacity Building Program. I don't know why I went biodiversity. That's what's happening when you talk about so many Rio Conventions together. But just to talk about that and what the program is, what it stands for, where it's at right now, I'd like to invite Alejandro Kilpatrick, who's the manager of the Capacity Building Subdivision here at the UNFCCC. Over to you, Alejandro.
Thank you very much. Really good afternoon, and thank you to Marie-Claire and Kathy for giving us an overview of the Rio Conventions. And I think I want to mention that there's been a lot of talk about synergies, and there is a group established between the three Rio Conventions called the Joint Liaison Group, where every now and then the three conventions at the level of the executive secretaries meet to exchange notes on how to improve synergies. And one of the very concrete activities that has come out of that Joint Liaison Group is what we call this Joint Capacity Building Program for the Rio Conventions. As Marie-Claire said, of course, there are other multilateral environmental agreements, but this Joint Capacity Building Program is focused on the three Rio Conventions: the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Convention to Combat Desertification, and the Climate Change Convention. And actually, this Joint Capacity Building Program was launched this year because it's the year of the three COPs. And we've been working already on several products. Probably some of you have participated in webinars. And we had events in Cali. We're going to have actually a presentation this afternoon on this Joint Capacity Building Program. And we're joined by Ludwig, our expert, who's helping us design the program. But something that has really come out very strong in designing this program is the the involvement of youth in terms of targeting this capacity building program to young people, not only as recipients of capacity building, but also as providers of capacity building. As you mentioned, the 3 Rio conventions have their youth constituencies, if I can call them like that. So through this Youth for Capacity program, we're also looking at how to integrate and work more closely together with the joint Rio Conventions capacity building program, meaning that maybe the idea of creating a dedicated work stream focus on building the capacities of young people, that would be the next steps. So we have a webpage of this program that you can access, and we have already some materials there and recordings on the webinars. There's going to be a webinar early December. So a lot of exciting things happening on the joint Rio Capacity Building program. And it's one concrete activity, but as mentioned by Kathy Lee and Marie Claire, there are decisions that are very encouraging about synergies, actual decisions that came out of Cali, very concrete decisions on Cali, actually even referring to capacity building as such. And in the GST, as you mentioned, there are also discussions. So there is a framework, the mandates to work more closely on this, and we're more than happy to continue engaging with young people through the Youth for Capacity program and joining forces with our other colleagues in the other conventions. So some positive news there. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. So enough of talking. We're going to go right into the group activity. I'll just give you a little bit of what we're going to do. The aim of this entire activity is to go through what, so what, now what. So what we will be discussing with the what, you'll see that there are 5 tables with 5 different scenarios, interconnected scenarios that affect all climate, biodiversity, land, desertification, all of that. So you feel free to pick one of them. We're going to discuss what this interconnected scenario is. You're going to go into the significance, the broader connections of it with the so what. And then you're going to go into a synergistic solution, which is now what do we do? So that's where we're at, and you can see that the questions are on the screen, and I'll put them back again. But we have 5 fantastic facilitators with us here to help us out with all of our discussions, and the 5 scenarios are on the screen as well. We try to make this Gen Z millennial friendly, which is why you see the names are fun stuff like Flame of Thrones, Titanic Tides, Dry Heart, Dune Domination, Too Hot to Handle. So we have the first one that will be facilitated by Juliet, who is the global coordinator for the UNCCC Youth Caucus. So Juliet, just hi to everyone, I guess. The second one will be facilitated by Christina Rodriguez, who is the Ocean Associate at the High Level Champions team. And there we have Christina at the back over there. Her table is over there. The third one is facilitated by Aurora, who is a fellow of the Biofilm Project. There we go, that's Aurora. The fourth one by Lydia. There we go, Lydia, who is the technical analyst at the Race to Resilience. And finally, last but not the least, Too Hot to Handle by Karishma, who's at that table right there. She's a lecturer at the University of Edinburgh. So for the next 15 minutes, we break into the groups, have the discussions of what, so what, now what. I'm going to put the questions back on, but happy discussing, and we'll come back in 15 minutes. Over to the facilitators now. Just a time check. You all have 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. This is a 1-minute warning. We're going to wrap up in 1 minute. So come up with your headline statements, 1 minute. All right, everyone. I hope you had a good time discussing your nightmare solutions that we have gone through, the 5 what's, and had the chance to go from, I do want to put this meme up because, oh no, I'm going back. Let me go forward. There we go. We want to go from nightmares to dreams to reality. So who over here knows Hilary Duff from the movie? I forget the movie. Lizzie McGuire, the movie. There we go. So this is what dreams are made of, and then we're all in this together, and we make our dreams come true. So let's go from the nightmare scenarios to the dreams and to reality solutions that you all have. What group is ready to go first? Okay, Lydia put her hand up first. So there we go. Let's hear from Dune Domination. Give a huge round of applause for Dune Domination.
Thank you so much, Riri. So we decided to split the task of reporting back because it was a teamwork. It's very important we all get the opportunity to speak. Discussing about what the problem is. So we have desertification that is spreading, that is consuming arable land, is consuming livelihoods of local farmers, and also threatening biodiversity and communities. It is caused by resource use, of course, through, for instance, timber and charcoal extractions. And it can also be a cause of mismanagement by institutions, by policymakers, where not the right policies are in place to prevent such disasters from happening. And the third cause we discussed is also population growth and urbanization that's driving out arable land where trees are being cut down to transform them into agricultural land. So land use change is also a really big driver for desertification. And now I pass on to my colleague to discuss so what.
Thank you. About the second part, so what, we find 3 points. First one, we find a food crisis or food insecurity. Second one, we find global warming. And third one, we find dust and sunstorms. Thanks.
Now what? So we said first we could look at the easy way out to plant more trees, as many as we can plant. There's never a number. People say this is the easiest climate action we can always do. So plant as many trees as we. But another thing we could also look at is to have an economic incentive for not cutting the trees. There are areas where cutting of trees is an economic activity. And so if you are telling people not to cut trees, what will be the alternative you are giving them? Because if it is my livelihood to cut the tree, to burn it into charcoal and sell it off, what would you give me so that I wouldn't want to cut the tree? So we are looking at economic incentive replacement. Then we should have regional frameworks in areas where desertification transcends boundaries. You would need some regional integration to be able to resolve the issue, because you could have transboundary issues. Then we should go for a full implementation of a circular economy, because when we always have to go back to go for resource, then we are not doing well, because then we would always have to deal with issues of resource scarcity. But if we integrate resource reuse, which is the full implementation of a circular economy, when you use something, it should be reused, because whatever resource you use would feed into another part of the economy, which would serve as an input there, then comes out somewhere as an output. Then finally, we should look at how we could harness renewable energy out of the whole ecosystem to be able to solve the issue of desertification. So this is from my group and myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dune Domination. Those were a set of solutions. It wasn't one, but I think that's what it is. When we're looking at the synergistic implementation and actions, are looking at a bunch of things like economic incentives, simple solutions like planting trees, but also looking at circular economy models. Okay, who wants to go next? Which group? Dryhard went first. Yeah, over to Dryhard.
Well, I felt really sad when the other team mentioned like the simple solution, because we literally wrote reforestation. But okay, so we're also going to be dividing our explanation. So I'm going to be explaining what. Regarding what, well, you can see our team is Dryhard. So regarding what, we try to join several effects or several things that explain the Dryhard, right? So we have heat waves, of course, due to climate change, which cause droughts, and with that we lose biodiversity, right? So that's like the relation between desertification, climate change, and biodiversity. And we also tried to write down several factors that also propel these kinds of effects or factors. For example, first off, we also consider change of land use, right? So when we, when for example, for let's say for cows, right? So when we place down animals for our consumption, we change the land, and when we also, for example, get to grow our food, we change our land, right? So that's one thing. Second, we also wrote the urban expansion. So of course our cities continue growing. I think there's a really shocking statistic. I think it's like 7 out of 10 people are going to be living in cities for 2050. So that's that. And also we considered agriculture and industrial activities as a whole to really explain, well, what happens with droughts and also water diversions. So, yep.
Yes, so thanks for providing the background of the what. Then we discussed the so what. So because of the temperature rise, droughts, and loss of biodiversity, we identified a set of different issues. The first one we identified is climate migration, so the fact that people will have to leave the region or the area where they live because there is the conditions are bad and maybe there is no water, no food, etc. But we also identified the impact on indigenous people and local communities because indeed if an area is destroyed and people are moving, then also we lose traditional knowledge and there is also an impact on cultural heritage of that area. Another important thing that was mentioned is also the fact that droughts can also increase gender gap because we discussed about the fact that women actually hold some duties that are related maybe to the collection of water, to the care of the family, and so this can impact more the gender gap between women and men. We discussed about insecurity, food insecurity, natural connection between land use change. If we have, if we destroy the land, if we have less water, then also food will be scarce and people will have to move, and etc. Another important point that was raised is the increase of conflicts and criminalization. So maybe if no water, no food in an area, then people will start to fight for that food or for the little water that there is. And these are the 5 issues that we identified. Now you go.
Okay, so then what we are going to do, we propose to make a nature-based solution with local support. As this nature-based solution, we think that we can restore some riparian areas because we are talking about droughts. So that could be a good solution. Also changing our diet and buying from local producers. It's super important to change our habits and eat less meat in some cases, and also buying food from our local producer because the footprint of the food it's bigger when the meat or the food came from places that are more far. The other one is changing our way of consumption, also to try to consume less products. And then reforestation as a general mitigation action. And the last one is entrepreneurship for impact. From young people that the young people we can lead these projects and try to make solutions involving all the community and with the help of the people in the area. So thanks.
Thank you, Dryhard. We have 3 more groups left, so let's keep our responses a little more brief. But I know that Titanic Tides raised their hands, so y'all go next. There's a mic on your table. You could just switch it on, yeah.
So, hello. Our topic was on Titanic, rising sea levels, eroding coastal lines, killing coral reefs, and displacing communities. So, what are the impacts of the rising sea levels? So, one, we have displacement of settlements. Another one, we have destruction of properties. As a result of rising sea levels, the water will surpass the line, the double line, therefore, distracting more properties. And then impact on economic growth negatively. Because now when the people's settlements are disrupted, then that means they'll have to move. When they move, probably the goods where they were buying, they wouldn't get them there anymore, and maybe there might be a hike in prices. Another one is cultural loss and ties to ancestral heritage because of movement. That is self-explanatory. Also, there is food insecurity. More about the economic impact, right? There will be food insecurity now that they have lost their settlements and their markets probably are eroded, and now there's problem of food. Scarcity, water, fresh water scarcity. When ocean water floods all around, it's all salty, right? And now it interferes with the fresh water. Also, loss of lives, of course. As a result of rising of ocean water, we can lose lives. You agree? And then the last but not least is mental health. How does this interfere with our health? Now that the settlements are displaced, they don't have food, some lives are lost, so it interferes with our mental health. That is on the what are the impacts. So I'll welcome my colleague.
Thank you. So as we all know, the implications of sea level rise is adverse to a lot of local communities along the coastline, especially in Africa because of our exposed vulnerabilities. Now, what do we do about it? We, as a group, believe in action-based solutions. That the solutions that has to be pursued by both local actors and then top actors should be action-based. It shouldn't just be talk. It shouldn't just be things that we say, but they should be action-based. What can we see on the ground? What can we do as a people? And then we were looking at phasing out fossil fuels, more so because a major part of the issue on sea level rise is more on the greenhouse gas emissions leading to sea level rises and then high velocity waves that have adverse impacts on coastlines. And so we are looking at phasing out fossil fuels because it is at the base of all the issues that we face at coastal communities. Now, understanding local community concerns and co-creating these solutions. We say this because most of the time when we are doing knowledge, capacity building, action-oriented solutions, etc., we do not seem to give credit to local people who have actually lived in these communities over a long period of time and give them the credit of having the knowledge to have survived for so long. So we believe in understanding their local context and then co-creating the solutions with them because we have a good technical and scientific understanding of what is happening and they have a lived experience understanding of what's happening. So once we can co-create the solutions, we are able to have better impact and then better solutions. Then we also looked at proper urban planning. And this urban planning should be equitable, just, and then nature-based. More so because hard engineering structures are just one part of addressing coastal erosion and sea level rise issues. But then when we look at mixing both the gray and then the green infrastructures or looking at key nature-based solutions like mangrove, restoration, etc., then we are able to replenish the eroding seas and then eroding lands along the coastline and then do better as a people. And maybe the last one was also on the mental health intervention, more so because once a people have an understanding and are empowered on the mental level, they are able to take actions that matter to them, and they are also able to take the action around their communities because then their minds are in a good place to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Titanic Tides. Okay, we are running over time, so 2 minutes each to the last two groups. Who wants to go first? Who want to handle? Okay, they raise their hands. I don't know who I saw first, but yeah. Okay, I'm closer here. I'll get to you, Karishma.
So she will do our summary in French. We do a little translation.
Bonsoir à tous, je suis Grace et je viens de la Côte d'Ivoire. Ok. D'abord, quels sont les liens qui existent entre... Notre thème d'abord c'est Flame of Thrones. Ok. Et le lien qu'il y a, c'est que déjà, on va partir sur la forêt. Lorsque la forêt brûle, il y a déjà la dégradation des sols. Parce que les sols perdent leur richesse et les animaux perdent leur vie. Et oui, nous avons la perte des espèces. Ok. Maintenant, la biodiversité, la perte des espèces, la fumée, le carbone, il détruit la couche d'ozone, participant ici au changement climatique. Et ça affecte les humains, les animaux et la planète. So what? Déjà, nous avons la perte de la biodiversité, nous avons la perte des espèces, nous avons la dégradation des sols. Nos écosystèmes aussi sont touchés. Aussi, ça affecte la santé humaine, ça affecte aussi nos productions, nos ressources. Mais avant de parler de danger ou de la nourriture, c'est même pas sûr d'avoir la nourriture parce que les sols ne sont pas riches, donc c'est pas sûr d'avoir des récoltes. Now what? Déjà, il faudrait plus accentuer la sécurité au niveau de nos ressources, de nos forêts. Les communautés aussi ont leur part à jouer. Nous devons être plus vigilants et prendre conscience de l'importance de nos forêts. Nous devons aussi, pourquoi pas, utiliser la technologie comme avoir des systèmes qui pourront détecter la fumée et, si possible, dégager de l'eau pour pouvoir arrêter le feu. Donc, c'est un peu ça.
I do a 30-second summary and speak very quickly. So we talked about wildfires and we identified that the carbon is mainly treated in the UNFCCC, then the biodiversity in the CBD and the soil-related issues in the CCD. But of course, it's all connected to the people, planet, and also the animal, as she has been rightfully pointing out. Then on the so what, I mean the ecosystem's integrity, but also the human health actually is heavily impacted by it, wildlife as well as the soil health, which also impacts the food production throughout. And when we were talking about the solutions, actually there were many more solutions, we couldn't cover them all, but we talked mainly about land rights and how this is interconnected, as well as the policies and who kind of has the ability to also like implement these policies. We heard some examples also from Brazil, where this is very, very difficult because of some of the groups, as well as some monitoring technologies which are already there to prevent this. And just a big shout out for you to speak in French and presenting our group work. Woo!
All right, back to you, Karishma.
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah. Good. My friends are timing me, and I have two difficult jobs, to be on time and to keep you active and to listen to me. So how many of you live in an urban area? Can you raise your hand? Keep your hand raised if you face the following problem. So we've identified a few issues. The food system. Have you seen the food system being negatively impacted? Biodiversity, negative impacts. Yes. Transportation, negatively impacting on the biodiversity infrastructure as well. So we decided then to focus on food system. And so what? How does the food system impact this relationship between urban areas, biodiversity and land? We've seen that the space, it takes a lot of space as well, and we have a growing demand in urban areas for food. And there is a kind of like a process for growing, processing, and eating and distribution, which needs to be looked into. So this framework, now what do we propose is community gardens, but it's not as simple as that. I'm sure you have community gardens around you. We need to tackle the root cause of motivating people, also looking into how to educate them to use those community gardens, but also it can start from school. Then we thought about, I'm just picking up a few things. We thought about food banks, that could help as well, having an app where you have extra food that you want to share, or food donation. We could implement this. And we also thought about promoting local farmers, not the artisans market where it's overpriced or selling you at triple prices, but also finding incentives or giving subsidies to farmers that where they can reduce the price, and also giving them the tools and support to grow their produce. And yes, Chandel, I have trials, guilt trip, meet Liz to talk about this one. My time is up. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I see that there were some very specific solutions, some low-hanging fruit solutions, some combination of solutions. And I think that was the whole point of this exercise, of really going into a simulation of how young people play such an active and important role in the synergies and in solutions, in actions. Like that group also said, that it's also about doing the actions and not just talking about it. We've been speaking about the different conventions, and we would be nowhere without the youth constituencies that support the convention and ensure the meaningful engagement of young people. So we have a couple of people over here who will very quickly sort of give you an elevator pitch or an elevator ride with the youth constituencies. So first, we have Karishma talking about Yango. Karishma, I know you have a mic, so please feel free to join me here.
So how many of you already know Yango? Raise up hands. Yeah, we are kind of like doing.
Okay, this is a Yango room.
Yeah. Yes. So, what questions do you have about Yango? I'm not going to do the elevator pitch then.
What question?
Yeah. Do you have a question, a query? Any question from the room? Do you know everything?
Love how Kathy has a question about Yango.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's take Kathy's question. Yeah.
Gonna break the ice. Anyone else got questions? If I'm new to the UNFCCC space, what would be the top 2 things you would recommend me to do in Yango? What should I do? How should I engage?
So maybe I'll tell you my journey and how I went through it. So when I joined Yango, it was like an ocean to me. So many things happening. I don't know how to swim, etc. So I decided to stick to one like lifeboat. So I went to the thematic of climate finance, and this is what I started with. And I stayed with it for 2 good years, only focusing on climate finance, because I wanted to know how the space has evolved in UNFCCC, how to follow negotiations, also how to get engaged with different stakeholders. So from my experience, staying focused helped, because then I could explore the diverse ways to get engaged into the climate policy processes, right? And then I could champion it in different working groups, which I did not join thematic working groups. So afterwards, after 2 years in climate finance, I joined the policy team, where I was working on the global youth statement last year, and this year I'm doing the youth stocktake framework. So in a nutshell, I started with the thematics, and then I moved to more strategic engagement within Yango to build and implement like frameworks, the global youth policy team. It's up to you how you want to navigate it, but from my experience, I didn't do 100 of things. I didn't do many things, yeah. So just because I wanted to learn as much as possible from this one single engagement that I have. Yeah, maybe someone else has different experience. Yeah.
I want to ask, how can, let's say, you from the community level, the grassroots level, connect or become a registered member of Yango? How can a youth at the community level, grassroots level, become a registered member of Yango?
Yes. So we have a membership form. So once you filled it, there are regular onboarding calls that are arranged. So once you join the onboarding calls, then you would be shared with the working groups to choose. Working groups means the thematics. So you can join ocean, gender, like I said, finance, just transition, etc. Then you choose one or two. There's no limit on the choice. But as I mentioned, personal choice, I stick to one. So it's up to you. You join them, and each groups, they have their own activities. Yeah. Happy to share more after this event as well.
4 more questions. We will take them after the session because we have 2 more constituencies to get through. So maybe we take the questions after the sessions. I will pass it over to now the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. We have Hita here from GYBN. Over to you.
Yes, hello everyone. Pleasure to be here. My name is Heitor. I'm from Brazil. I'm policy coordinator for the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. GYBN is the official international platform for coordinating young people at the conventional biological diversity. We also are a community-led organization, which means that we have over 50 national chapters, and the process that we are building in our community is really trying to create these bridges between our local communities, put them in contact with their policy at the national level, and then connecting this national level at the global level at the CBD. So making this bridge between local to international policy and coming back with the international policy to the implementation at local level is central part of our work as GYBN. As we also have heard today, CBD on the past 2 years have approved the Global Biodiversity Framework. This is the framework that now is in place and that are going to guide the convention for the next 10 years regarding the strategies, regarding the goals, regarding the targets that we need to achieve for the common understanding about what we need for biodiversity conservation. And it's very important to highlight that youth was a really important part of the design of this framework. And because of the youth involvement into this process, we had for the first time on a framework convention on the CBD, the direct mention for the international equity on the section C. That is the section that puts contact with the transactional process for the implementation of the framework. And also target 22, that's talking about the full and effective participation among other right holders of children and youth as well. And of course, the all right-based approach that we have embedded in the whole framework itself, it's also part of our work inside of the convention, and of course, the allies that we are coming together as indigenous peoples, local communities, and women. And as we are talking about synergies, we have 2 particular focus on these discussions between biodiversity and climate change. On the framework, we have target 8 and target 11. Target 8 when you're talking about climate change, and target 11 when you're talking about nature contributions to people. And as we are talking a lot about synergies, for us also is very important to address that first steps of synergy is also understanding trade-offs and understanding, of course, that not all climate actions, not all climate solutions are going to be positive for nature. And we need to understand that we have huge umbrella concepts. We have different types of market approaches. We have different types of design of implementation process that if are not following ecosystems integrity, if are not following human rights, this is very, this could also provoke harm to both biodiversity and people. So this is part of our central message, and we will be happy to connect you with your local chapters, to connect you with our community on the ground and be part of the process. So please reach us. We'll be glad to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Hater. Now we have Juliet with the UNCCD Youth Caucus. You have literally 2 minutes. You have to really stick to it. We have the next session going on.
Thank you very much. And as every last born, UNCCD Youth Caucus was born because of efforts through UNGO and GYBN. That's how the Youth Caucus was born in 2019. And I think the unique factor, you can scan the QR code, disclaimer, so that you can read about everything, is now we have a youth engagement strategy. I think that's the one thing that we're doing different. So we are born, but we are thinking, how do we do this better? So the parties say, let's have a youth engagement strategy that guides how this constituency grows. So that's what we are working towards. How do we engage more young people? And as the last born, our COP is going to be the last one that's happening in Riyadh. So if you're able to come, do join us and create more meaningful spaces for young people within the UNCCD process.
That was fantastic. 1 minute and she's done. Well, if you're going to Riyadh, you know who to reach out to. And you know the names, faces, please take your questions. But with that, I just wanted to quickly close the session. QR codes are there. Please do scan it. But thank you so much for being a part of this session. This has been really, really enriching and inspiring to hear from all of you on what young people's role is and actions are within Rio Conventions. So yeah, with that, all of the information is on the slide, and you can also check out 2 of our other sessions over the next days. Now, please do stick around for the next session, which is also going to focus on Rio Conventions and Synergies. So this is not just about young people being in youth-specific rooms, it's being in all rooms. So please do stick around for the next session as well. But thank you so much, and big thanks to our facilitators and for the Paris Committee on Capacity Building for hosting us at the 6th Capacity Building Hub.